Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, going to go a story titled, I, a 31-year-old male, am getting married next week to my fiancée, a 26-year-old female of nearly 4 years, but just found out she may be emotionally cheating on me. Big shout out to Corey for sending me this story. And guys, this story is about a guy, like he says, getting married next week. And lately he's been finding out that his girl, fiancée, who's in a music school, if you will, she's been hanging out with a lot of people, but particularly this one dude. This one dude who she texts with all the time and has lunch with every day. This is all stuff he just found out. And recently, when the guy was away at a bachelor party, she had the guy sleep over her house because she said he got food poisoning. You put this all together and other things I haven't mentioned yet, there's something going on. And of course, when he brings it up to her, she was denying it, and twisting around, making him out to be the bad guy. This will be a very good one to go over here, guys, to show you, once again, when there's smoke, there's fire. If there are pay attention to the red flags. And you put enough red flags together, you need to act on it. Because if you don't, you could have a very, very unhappy relationship and marriage if you get involved with something like this. And also, I might add, with him having genuine, legitimate concerns here, she doesn't give a shit. She doesn't give a shit about his feelings or care. And you can't be with someone that doesn't give a crap about your feelings. And also someone that is not willing to communicate with you or anything like that. But you put all this together, you're going to see what I'm talking about here. So this is definitely a good one for the relationship folks. And this guy definitely needs help here. This is definitely a guy who didn't get, well, let's just say, the type of information I talk about on this channel very often. And hopefully he does the right thing. We shall see. So it starts off. She says she just started music school and has been in need of more music friends to jam with and get comfortable with in her new school. They've been going out to music shows together lately. I was invited, but I have been crazy busy with work. And last weekend, I went on a cruise for my bachelor party, and when I got back, she told me how she went out Friday with him and then came back over to write music and hang out. Apparently, he had food poisoning and stayed till he felt better, which was deep into the morning, and she said didn't even know what time. So this guy that obviously I mentioned in the beginning of this story here, she's been spending a lot of time with. New school, making new friends to jam with, music, obviously playing in a band, whatever. And she's hanging out with this guy, and he got food poisoning. And so he spent the night in this guy's place. Yeah, red flags there. Guess what? He can go someplace else. He's a grown-ass man. I told her how upset this made me feel as we had this conversation about a previous guy that she had actually dated and spent a lot of time with and had a couple of times been alone with lately. She was defending herself, saying how she didn't realize it was wrong because this new guy didn't have a history with her, was in a relationship, and was 20 years old. Keep in mind, I actually never met him yet, but he came to my apartment when I wasn't even there. So she's bringing him to your apartment. She's hanging out with this guy alone. And apparently she has a history of this shit and not quite realizing how it makes you feel or caring. And remember, guys, they're due to get married next week. Does this sound like a good wife material to you? And you're going to see more as I get into this, that even if there's nothing physical going on, which I have a hard time believing it's not, there's an emotional affair going on. And this guy is allowing her to have dudes to hang out with, talk with, and he's not checking her. And that's the big freaking problem. I started questioning about how often they are together, and I found that she's been getting lunch with this guy nearly every day after class, sometimes with others, sometimes not. At this point, I was super upset and telling her how uncomfortable I was for her to spend late nights alone to be basically best friends with a guy. Telling her how uncomfortable you are. You need to put things in a more tougher tone, my friend. Now, some guys may say, oh, you know, she's 26 and he's 20 years old. So what? I was hooking up with girls much older than me when I was around 21 years old, okay? Or he's in a relationship. That doesn't mean shit. Or maybe they're just platonic friends. Bullshit. Remember, no guy hangs out with a good-looking girl unless he's hoping to nail her at some point. She agrees it wasn't right and apologizes, but was fighting me about how she didn't want to feel restricted with her friends as she was having trouble making them previously and they weren't doing anything wrong. Well, guess what? We're about to be married, and there's going to be some new rules. I'd be like, you don't see me hanging out with a bunch of chicks. You don't see me having lunch with other girls or texting with other girls. And how do you think she'd like it if some girl came over to his place when she wasn't there and spent the night with food poisoning and then finding out they text all the time and hang out all the time? Come on. Today I was questioning it more about how often they talk, because I even heard him call her last night around midnight to make plans to go to a pro-Israel rally and get lunch after that. Called her after midnight. Does this guy not understand boundaries? Or maybe he hasn't been given boundaries by her because she likes the attention. There are problems here. They'll get married next week, but it's not too late to back out of this. She was pretty against me asking to see their texts when I assumed they text more than we text. We went back and forth about how it's an invasion of her privacy and will just cause me to question her more by saying it's important for the extra transparency after I felt like my trust was broken. So already you're restricting me and you're not trusting me and you're invading my privacy. Well, then stop doing things and saying things that give me reason to not trust you. Situation was reversed. How do you think she'd feel? But he's the bad guy here. And remember, she wouldn't be getting this worked up if there wasn't something to hide. She showed me her texts, and I saw it had been a good amount of texts every day since the week they met. Like at least 3 times the amount that we text. I didn't excuse me. Where'd that come from? I did notice it was mostly music links, but I didn't read it, just looked at how much there was texting. So she's texting this dude 3 times the amount of time she's texting her fiancé. Again, more red flags. She's been trying to reassure me and tell me how she wants to spend more time with me, as lately she's been absorbed in her music stuff, and she was telling me I'm her special person and we talk in person a lot more than text. We've been having a lot less intimacy lately with us being so busy with wedding planning and our respective work, but I've been having certain thoughts. It's also because he's been meeting her emotional needs and isn't as interested to spend time with me. Yeah, if they're all of a sudden spending a lot less time together and they're not hooking up as much and they're about to get married, what does this say? I gotta wonder if she's panicking because she's about to get married and is trying to sabotage things. That's what I think. And then he breaks it up with her and she said, it wasn't my fault. He ended it with me. Who knows? Things like this have happened before. I'm quite upset she doesn't realize before I got upset how this would make me feel. And even says that she can't read my mind when I explain these things. It should be common sense. Either she's dysfunctional in certain ways mentally, doesn't get on the spectrum, if you will, which is going to cause you a lot of headaches, or simply she's full of shit. Because believe me, if the situation was reversed, she'd have issue. I've been ruminating all this in my head and it's driving me mad, and I've been feeling quite heartbroken. My trust feels so low that even when she was using the bathroom, I just felt like she was probably just texting the guy, since she took a lot longer than she usually does, and it was late at night. I was also waiting for her to get out of the shower after her, and she tells me that she was only in there for 15 minutes when it was almost an hour. That's because she's lost in texting land. That's what's going on here. I want to prove it to her by asking her when she last texted her friend, because it would prove me right about both of us, but I held back. Yeah, because you're chicken to confront her because you want to make her mad. Bro, something's going on, obviously. Even if she isn't hooking up with him physically, she's emotionally cheating on you. And some people think it's worse. You can debate that one. I say no, but you get my point. It is not too late to back out of this wedding, because once you marry her ass, now you're married to her, and it takes things to a whole new level of problems. She gets upset when I bring things up too late at night before she goes to sleep, but I brought up how upset I am and can't stop feeling like I was cheated on. She reacts and tells me how I can't blame her for things this late, and we argued about how I should be allowed to bring up my feelings, and wasn't looking to argue, but just get a hug and a little reassurance. So, this guy, even though it's warranted for him being fed up about all this shit and having issue with it, I don't know about you, but he definitely strikes me as a needy type. He strikes me as the type of guy that needs lots of reassurance. Probably, he has reason. This is warranted, his reaction here. But he definitely gives me the vibe of being more of a needy type of guy. And that will turn any woman off. I do love her and see myself with her and want to get married. But this has been a shakeup to me learning all this. I know in her eyes they are just friends, but it's broken my trust. And I doubt we can really build it back so fast. If there's no trust, there's no relationship. End of freaking story. On the bright side, I do have confidence she didn't actually and isn't planning to cheat on me. Dude, really? I know she isn't like that, but I do doubt her awareness of her actions and how much she actually considers and prioritizes my feelings. Smack! I should have smacked him 10 times at this point. Dude, She has to know what she's doing. Come on here. You're giving her too much benefit of the doubt. She reassured me that we would talk more soon about this, and she always proves to be a good listener when I have a nice tone, and it's a good time, but I'm fearful how close the wedding is with this intense doubts and trust issues. How can we fix this, or is this unfixable? I can understand if I'm just letting my jealousy get the best of me, and it'll all work out easily, but I also can see that this is becoming a worse problem as she gets more and more defensive about it. I can see how someone can get annoyed if somebody keeps bringing up the same thing and nothing's going on, but the point is something's going on. I don't care what anybody says. And she really doesn't give a shit about how this guy feels. But this is why you need to lay out the boundaries early on. If you are in a relationship, certainly if you're engaged to be married, but you're not hanging out with other guys. You're not hanging out with other guys, you're not texting other guys, etc., etc. And I don't want to hear if he's gay, because obviously that's not the case. Because believe me, guys don't hang out with good-looking women unless they want to hook up with them. Period. Or unless they're doing business together or something like that. Period. Believe me, his mind is in the gutter if they aren't already gallivanting in the gutter together, if you will. So this guy, in my opinion, needs to, at the very least, postpone the wedding. You may take a hit in the short term, but it's a lot better than marrying her and then taking a major hit down the road. Or, quite simply, just call it off altogether. And the good thing is it sounds like they don't live together, so he doesn't have to deal with, her getting out of there. But just, this is a mistake. It's just, she doesn't care about him. Her actions have proven that obviously she's into this other dude, and this guy's feelings don't mean jack shit to her. And you can't be with someone that treats you like that. Imagine how their marriage is going to be, right? But some people have to learn the hard way. So that's what I think. Now, real quick, some comments here before I wrap this up. One guy, and by the way, my bad. He adds some more information here I found in his comments, then I'll get to the main thing. He also says, well, the point about him being 20 was that he was too young to be considered a threat. Bullshit. He's 20 years old. Believe me, he's a horny dog, and believe me, he's in his prime in terms of the sexual prime. I don't know if that's valid because they'll be in school together for 4 more years, and then he won't be 20 anymore. Yes, we've had lots of fights about how she's flipping the conversation and talk about what I'm doing wrong many, many times. So, you have a warranted reason to bring this up and give her a hard time, and she twists it around and makes out like you're the bad guy. Gee, never heard that one before. I do think she's quite a reserved person when it comes to emotional intimacy. She talks about everything and is quite close with me, that I know she's not doing the same thing with anybody else. Are you sure about that, dude? She's just obsessed with music, so I can understand why she's been so talkative with him. You're making excuses. She's also a bit spectrum-y. Really? Did you really say spectrum-y? So I don't believe her when she says she doesn't realize some things. I do believe her when she says she doesn't realize some things. But the hard part is getting her to just admit it once she realizes and stop the explanations and excuses. The restricted aspect is an obvious red flag. I'm made to feel bad for even bringing it up, and there should be boundaries. It's so hurtful. And he also says, finally, someone who's on the other side. I also think the reasons aren't the best to immediately distrust her, but to the average person, there are, as you can see with all other replies. At this point, I feel trapped to marry her. We already spent the money, and I have to just be okay with how she has no boundaries with this guy. No, you don't need to be okay with that, dude. Be a fucking man and stand up for what you want. And we'll continue to see him daily for the next some odd years until they graduate. That's what he had to say about that. But no, you don't just allow that thinking that's just how it has to be. You're the number one man in her life, period. If not, you're not getting married to her. End of story. Now, some other comments here. One guy says, I'm sorry, but you really should reconsider marriage with her. Your fiancé has a problem with boundaries with either men, and this will eventually, if not already, lead to her to an inappropriate relationship with one of these guys. And she apparently doesn't realize this herself. Another guy says, so tell her this. Now explain your concerns. That her inappropriate closeness with several different men and her lack of awareness of this and her disregard for your feelings regarding this now have you in doubt about going through this marriage at all. This is not about jealousy. It's about your fiancé seeing no problem in developing a close emotional attachment with other men, and her lack of recognition that this brings a huge risk that this will develop into a deeper, intimate connection not compatible with marriage to you. It's a huge decision, I know, but unless there's a deal made, including immediate therapy for her to handle her association with other men, and for you to regain trust in her, you should really consider postponing the marriage. Exactly. At the bare minimum, postponing. But quite frankly, between clearly where there's smoke, there's fire, something's going on, and her complete lack of his feelings, they shouldn't be together, period. Another guy says here, he didn't have food poisoning. You know it, she knows it. And why only one guy she keeps texting if she's in school, with dozens if not more people, do not marry her. And the last one this guy says here, as always, there's a lot of background noise here that you should cut through. Number 1, the two of you haven't been very intimate recently. 2, she's been having lunch with this guy every day. 3, he calls her at midnight. 4, she texts him 3 times the amount that she texts you. And 5, they went out the other evening while you were away and stayed over. He stayed over. Read all this together, and what do you see? At the very least, this is an emotional affair. You know it, and she knows it. This is why she didn't want you to see the text, etc. It is possible it is a physical affair, going out in the evening with a 20-year-old who ends up sleeping over at your house while you're away. What could possibly go wrong? Food poisoning excuse is almost certainly BS, so if that's BS, what else is? Exactly. And the whole comment section is full of people saying the same thing, both men and women. So, there you go. If he marries her, he's a bonehead, and he can expect more of this shit. I mean, does he want the rest of his life to be like this? I mean, but some guys have to learn the hard way. But hopefully you guys learn from his mistakes and don't do the same thing. Alright guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.